Hey guys, it's time to Nefis and chill, and it has been a wild roller coaster ride. If you have been keeping up with this channel or my videos, or things said in the ESO University Discord, or even keeping up with my tanking videos, you'll know that for over the past year, Alkosh has been fiddled with, experimented with, changed, modified a fair amount by the developers in the Elder Scrolls Online, and this is because they seem to have this desire to have stamina DPS wear Alkosh, and there were a lot of obviously failed attempts at this. At one point, it's like it made no sense to put it on the stamina DPS, even though it was clear that was their intention, and they made it even more of a god tier support set for tanks to use to provide armor penetration for both Magicka and stamina DPS in raids or dungeons, making it so that it's kind of silly to not have a tank wear it. Well, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is, or I guess the good news, I don't know if it's good or bad, but the news is Alkosh has been changed yet again. But this time it's actually an interesting change, actually, because now it's sort of like, oh, well, maybe I will wear it on the stamina DPS instead of a tank. And the change here, as we can see on the Update 31 PTS, otherwise known as the Waking Flame DLC, is going to be that when you activate a synergy, you send a shockwave, yada yada yada, but it reduces the physical and spell resistance of any enemy hit by the amount of your weapon damage for the duration, up to a maximum of 6,000. And obviously the damage scales off the higher of your weapon and spell damage. Now let's not get confused here. There's two components to Alkosh. The first component is obviously the proc damage, which is going to be the shockwave damage where it's the dot, right? Actually fiddled with the dot and the duration, I believe, but kept it pretty much mostly the same in terms of the damage. So stamina DPS may still have a reason to use this. In addition, while it says the damage scales off the higher of your weapon and spell damage, the penetration will actually depend on your weapon damage. And this is quite interesting to me because, and it makes sense to me, because you have a lot of DK tanks, for example, nowadays spec into spell damage for Engulfing Flames. Why? Because you can get that 10% bonus damage pretty easily without fully investing into stats such as putting spell damage glyphs on your jewelry or whatnot. There's really easy, especially after post update 29, where everybody got a free 1,000 base 1,000 weapon and spell damage. So again, they pretty much with update 29 kind of push tanks in further to Alkosh, and also for DK tanks especially, keeping up Engulfing and Stone Giant when possible. Now that Alkosh has been changed to weapon damage, now it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe the DK tanks that keep up Stagger, Engulfing, or whatever cannot wear Alkosh or should not wear Alkosh, because now it might be delegated to stamina DPS. To answer this question, will Alkosh no longer be a tank set? The answer is yes and no. Yes, because for Magicka DPS compositions, you don't need a full 6,000 penetration for trash fights, or you don't even need Alkosh at all, period, for boss fights, right? Because you have Infused Crusher, you have Major Breach, you have Minor Breach, and so forth, right? Now, for stamina DPS, this could be both a yes and no. This could be a yes and no. No, because it may not be a tank set anymore, because again, it's kind of hard for us to reach the full 6,000 weapon damage as tanks. Not hard as in extremely hard, but it's definitely something we'd have to kind of spec more into, as opposed to the spell damage, the amount of spell damage and max Magicka we need to spec into for Engulfing Flames. I'm sure someone out there, whether it's me or whoever is going to be interested in theory crafting this for tanks, will find a way to spec for the 6,000 weapon damage for tanks. So yes, maybe tanks will still wear Alkosh for stam DPS compositions, and you may be laughing at me like, oh, stam DPS comps, when's the last time that happened, right? But again, I think as a forward for a different video, I think stam is definitely coming back with this patch. Otherwise though, no, probably not going to be a DPS set. Even the patch notes were like, you know, maybe this will still, maybe this will convince stamina DPS to wear it. Maybe not, probably not. But I can see case for both. That's the thing, and I think that's what I like about this change. I can finally see a case for both, where you know you can have stamina DPS wear it, or tanks wear it. This is the first time in the history of the changes of Alkosh where I'm like, okay, they may have finally figured something out in regards to Alkosh. But that kind of leads us down this road in regards to a set that I want to talk about. It's gonna be Crimson Oath Rive, and this is a new set coming out. This is the heavy armor set coming out with one of the 2 new dungeons, the Dreadcellar, and basically it's an easier version of Alkosh. Basically, whenever you cast an ability, or you drink a potion, or use a poison that applies a major or minor buff to yourself or an ally, just like Alkosh, you send out a wave of energy that reduces the armor of nearby enemies within 12 meters by 3,335. It's a little bit higher with gold, for 15 seconds. And this effect can pretty much be kept 100% of the time because it occurs once every 12 seconds. It will only occur if an enemy is within range. So, I tested Crimson Oath Rive. Yes, it's very, very easy to use. It's a heavy armor set as well. Perfect, because, you know, compared to Alkosh, it's a medium armor trial DPS set that doesn't really have great, you know, tanking bonuses for most players. You get Minor Slayer. Oh, is that good for tanking? Probably not. Weapon critical rating? Nah, probably not that great for tanking. Weapon damage? Pretty much most tanks wear it for the 5-piece, right? In comparison to that, Crimson Oath is, you know, armor mitigation, max health, right? And it's heavy armor. It's in heavy armor, right? So, compared to Alkosh, how does Crimson Oath's Rive hold up? Well, there's problems with this. The problem with Crimson Oath is it's a cap of 6, right? And that's not good, because with Alkosh, it's definitely uncapped. I actually missed this skeleton right here because I wasn't standing in the middle. But a lot of people underestimate how wide and how, you know, far Alkosh can hit. A lot of people think, well, Alkosh is kind of hard to keep up, isn't it? You need a synergy. You also need to face a certain direction. But when you face a certain direction and you're hitting everything, I mean, you're pretty much good to go. I mean, this is, I think, slightly over 12 meters in game. We're hitting that one in the way back as well. This is a total of 16 skeletons we're hitting, 17 total, 1 in the back not being hit. So when Crimson Oath, the supposed alternative to Alkosh, only has a cap of 6, that's kind of a turnoff. But I can still see a use for this, because there's 2 things we need to talk about. I'm sure that they added Crimson Oath's Rive or up the penetration in Alkosh, mostly because, you know, Stam DPS comps aren't really being played around with by most players, right? Even if world record score pushers use Stam, most players probably won't go with Stam until maybe it trickles down at a later point. And my issue with that, with this approach from the devs, is it's not really about the penetration at this point, because there's now a lot of things we can do with penetration, whether you're Stam DPS or Magic DPS. It's about itemization, and itemization is a pretty big factor when it comes to raid compositions. Whether you go with Alkosh or Crimson Oath's Rive is going to be dependent on a lot of factors. What content is it? How many things are in the trash? And, you know, do you have synergies available in the Stam DPS comp, right, to even use Alkosh reliably? And that has been a problem, right? Will the Stam DPS using Alkosh even get a synergy? You know what I mean? It's not really the penetration itself that's the core issue. A lot of people think it is, I don't know why, but it's the itemization. And it's also these other small factors that lead up to the bigger factors being more prevalent, that make it more difficult for most players to kind of try running Stam comps in any, you know, in all content. Not that Stam DPS can't do it, but it's just harder to organize for it. But otherwise, in regards to, you know, Alkosh or Crimson, you can probably use either one. For Magic DPS, again, depends on content, because it has a cap of 6, right? You could potentially be fine with either. I mean, Rock Rio, for instance, it doesn't really have too many ads, really. You could definitely hit six important elite ads. I mean, in the greatest, in the toughest pull, there's a total of 4 elite ads right before Boss 2, Boss 8. But at the same time, Alkosh, you can probably build slightly for it. You'll still hit at least, you know, upper 3,000 to low 4,000, even without kind of thinking about it as a tank right now. I mean, for example, I have, you know, even without things, even with things missing, let's say I get Powerful Assault 2, right? I'm at 3,905 without, you know, doing anything. And again, Powerful Assault is guaranteed if you watch the last video I uploaded. So, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things you guys just gotta think about, and I have to think about when it comes to Alkosh and Crimson Oath. Otherwise, though, very interesting change for once. And we'll see how this goes, depending on penetration value, content, and group. Or even if the comp is going to be mixed, which I'll touch on in the Raycon video coming up. Yeah, I think Alkosh change was fine. I think Crimson Oath introduction is fine. I hope that they uncap this, could potentially see a better use for it in certain scenarios, particularly Magicka DPS comps could see more use from this rather than Alkosh. But then again, in Magicka DPS comps, you have more synergies, and you'll probably have higher values of penetration from Alkosh. So all in all, will you use Crimson Oath's Rive or Alkosh more? I think for tanks, you'll still be Alkosh. But for DPS, for Stam DPS in particular, now it's actually debatable. Now we gotta think about it. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. Thanks for Nefis and chilling. Stay safe and have fun, guys. I'll see you guys next time. If you guys like the content I've been putting out and you want to keep up to date with ESO builds, guides, and news, definitely like and subscribe so our content and channel reach more people, so other people can enjoy it too. I appreciate every one of you, and have a great day.